Hello. Over the last few weeks, I've been looking at micro-learning platforms on behalf of a couple of clients. And generally speaking, when I want to get into looking at micro-learning or other platforms, I like to try and build things within the platform to really get under the hood and understand how this particular platform works, what kind of thing and experience it creates for people. Now, micro-learning is all the rage just at the moment. The Deloitte Human Capital Trends report for 2019 says that learning is a big issue and that those organisations who are looking at learning and development as part of their corporate strategy are looking at developing material in small doses, digestible chunks. So micro-learning is front and centre of what's going on within the world of learning technologies at the moment. But as I was playing with these two tools, I was interested by how different they were. Although they both call themselves micro-learning, one is essentially a spaced practice tool. It works on the basis that it sends out questions to people, and once you've got the same question twice in succession, it retires that question. So you'll get maybe 3 questions one day and 2 questions the next day, and the following week you'll get another 4 or 5 questions. And randomly it will roll through the number of questions that have been programmed into the system until you've managed to retire all of them. Once you've answered a question, it gives you some more information. So an explainer piece comes up. And that, of course, is another way of reinforcing the content that you may already have considered or been given. So for things like product knowledge or compliance, then I can see this sort of thing being quite attractive to people. What I'd be really interested though is that if it also had a confidence check system, because very often you answer the question, you get it right, but let's be honest, you maybe guessed a little bit. It'd be really good to understand which people have got questions right, but don't necessarily feel that confident, because that means to me that they're unlikely to apply that knowledge that they have in practice. More interestingly and more importantly, I guess, it also helps us to identify the bluffers. The people who say, yeah, I know what the answers are, I know what's right, but are actually way off mark. Because those individuals are actively dangerous. They will go and do the wrong thing, believing that what they are doing is right. And we need to intervene with those individuals quickly. So some kind of confidence check would add some value. But as a knowledge check piece, as Will Thalheimer says when he talks about learning transfer evaluation method, it's kind of there at tier 3, tier 4. It's checking knowledge and it's doing it after the event. But though that knowledge check is not necessarily linked to improved performance in the workplace. It's just measuring whether or not people have remembered something. Has a purpose, but it's not great. However, this system also does a couple of other things that are quite interesting. One of them is a video response mechanism. So it gives me a scenario and I have to film my response to that scenario, and then that's fired off to my line manager or nominated coach. So that's pretty cool. And also I can comment. So if the question comes up and I've got a burning desire to share my thoughts with the rest of the world, then I can do that. It has leaderboards. It has leaderboard by teams. So those people who need to be competing with something in order to get engaged can get involved that way, and that's kind of quite useful. And I can see why people would kind of quite like the idea of that, if not necessarily the practice. The second platform that I looked at though is much more rounded. It's not about question and answer, it's about delivering content to people. But it's delivering bite-sized content, very small pieces. But it sequences them so that you can see a piece of text, maybe a web link, maybe a video, maybe answer a simple question, although the question mechanisms are a bit simplistic to be of any use. But fundamentally, I can send content out to people in short sequences that they can consume on the go. And I suppose in a way that's what I understood micro-learning to be all about when I first came into this. But in actual fact, if you look at some of that material and some of the limitations which the tool puts on you as a designer, we're going back to a learning design mechanism which wouldn't have been that interesting back when I first started creating e-learning programs 20 years ago. So I mean, this is teach, test stuff at best. And some of it, text on screen, maybe it's not a book with the next button, but no, it's a series of articles with the next button. And I'm not sure that that's enough to develop people's competence or to develop people's confidence to go and do things differently and do different things. And if we're not about enabling people to do things differently and do different things, what are we doing? As learning and development professionals, micro-learning may well be micro, but is it learning? Knowing what I should do, knowing what constitutes good practice is very different from committing to be a good practitioner and being able to be judged as such. And I won't really think that this is learning until such time as it's got those opportunities for experimentation, application, implementation, skills development, feedback, learning transfer, and behaviour change. Without those components, maybe this isn't learning at all, it's just adding to the digital noise. And frankly, I don't know about you, but I've probably got enough digital noise already, thank you.